Hope you're all doing okay today. And I appreciate the opportunity to present here today. Here in Edmond, Oklahoma, we do what most 911 centers do, and we record our telephone and our radio traffic. I think one of the beauties of our new system here is the fact that it's very expandable, and we're thinking a little bit outside the box here. In Edmond, we also provide your typical customer utilities such as water and sewer, but we also have an electric utility that's run and managed by the city here, which means we have a pretty large customer service utility customer service center, actually, which is 3 to 4 times the size of our 911 center, and they had a recording need. They traditionally didn't record their traffic, and our solution certainly allowed that to happen. The use of the secure web interface we find to be a great value, whereas we can access the data and the recordings really from any PC, whereas in the past, if I wanted to get any audio, I had to physically leave my office, which is in a separate building from my EOC and 911 center, to go to where the recorder was and then gain the audio that way. And even if I had a supervisor run that for me, we had to get that onto a cassette or a CD and make a trip in order to get that data. The beauty of the web interface is I can sit at my desk and pull anything I need to pull. I can also just receive an email. So the format in which the recordings are being presented makes it very easy for that email to occur. So it's not unusual for my comm center manager to have a call that she believes I need to listen to be emailed to me quickly, and then really with a click of a mouse, I've got that audio at my fingertips. We store our recordings here in Oklahoma for 7 years. That's a combination of statute and what we determine. That's just the way the law is out here. In today's environment, with the terabytes of data that we can store on our networks, it's made life a lot simpler. So that's all we do. We no longer are archiving information onto any external devices. It's happening all internal on our network. So much of it, there's a certain amount of it that is live, and then there's a certain amount of that ultimately gets archived, but it's easily accessible. So there's a huge advantage, especially for those of you that have experience in having to deal with tapes and DVDs and that kind of stuff over the years. Like I said, the information is very easy to export. In today's day and age, the lawyers, it seems, are getting, and the legal processes are getting more friendly and attuned to the fact that we can actually give them a digital recording in an email format, and even the basic stuff that our state attorney's office requests, such as that initial 911 call on a domestic violence type of call, is just pulled real quickly and emailed down to the office. Just saves time, it saves postage, and all those processes that used to be in place in order to get them recordings. We also use this simple functionality in ways we wouldn't use our recorder in the past. For instance, if somebody does an outstanding job on a call, or if they're innovative in some way, or there's a call where folks can learn from a training perspective, it's very simple to email that to the entire staff. In fact, it takes no longer than it would to send that recording to one person. You just send it to the group, and we're putting several of those calls per week out to our staff to showcase the excellent work of our frontline folks. But we also have the capability to run the full gamut. So if we have a capital crime occur, a homicide or an armed robbery, the system makes it easy to recreate that scenario in real time. So if you need to have an in-depth scenario created for investigative or even other legal reasons, it's not difficult to do, and we really enjoy the functionality, that functionality of the system. We have a lot of options and flexibility. The retention on demand, or as we call it, the record on demand features here are absolutely critical to our operation. What's pretty cool is that we're recording a 911 center, we're recording our utility customer service, but we have a lot of folks out there that have other recording needs, and having this system available to every telephone user in the city is a huge advantage. For instance, not everybody needs recording all the time, but of course they're the obvious ones, your detectives or maybe your fire investigative folks, your fire marshal. Those are folks that want to be able to record, and what do they have? They usually have some little cassette device or whatever that they plug their phone into, or maybe even some folks, I wonder if they're still using those old suction cups, but they're using antiquated systems. This allows us to give them the functionality, and it doesn't have to be full-time, and the beauty of this particular system is you can make that decision to retain the call before you hang up, as opposed to having to make that decision before you even make the call. So if you've got the capability on your phone and you decide halfway through that you want to keep that call, it's a good idea for you to keep it. You can make that decision as long as you do so prior to disconnecting that line. So, but it just gives us more flexibility within our organization, and we find that to be a huge advantage. There are rules in the system where if you want to archive for different periods of time, you can do that for the full-time recording folks. And one of the real keys here in searching for a vendor is, does the vendor understand public safety? And there is a clear difference between a business understanding and a public safety understanding. And I've had vendors in the past, as I've been making this transition from the old reel-to-reel days into today's environment, where we used folks that were used to providing recording in a business environment. So when I got jammed up and needed someone right here and now to fix the problem, they didn't quite understand that. So the vendor understanding of the public safety environment to us was critical in our decision-making process. But I want to give you maybe a bird's eye view from what's happening at the national level and how I feel that's going to drive us at the local level. I'm currently, for about the past 15 years, I've been involved in standards, operational standards development work with APCO, and I'm currently chairing the Call Center Standards Committee. And that's the group that's created P33 and the supervisor standard and the CTO standard and the competency standard for directors. We were asked this past year to be part of a joint effort between APCO, NENA, and some industry folks to create a quality assurance standard. And so we went through the occupational analysis process. Roy will probably talk about that in a few minutes. I believe he was involved in that part of the process. But we sat down with our group and actually have developed a quality assurance standard. Now, our objective there is to make this an ANSI standard, and to put that in a nutshell, that's basically a standard that is acceptable not only in our industry but in the world we live in. It's a process that's out there for standards in general. If there's a standard as to how a light bulb is built, it goes through that ANSI process, and that's the piece of it's a standard in the world we live in, and it's really a process that validates the standard itself and makes it acceptable. So that's happening. The standard has been drafted. In fact, you'll see it out for review here very shortly, which means that if the standard exists, then I've got to do something about that at the local level. And so if I'm going to be driven, by the standards, like I'm driven with P33, like I'm driven with the other standards that are out there, then this certainly is going to have an impact on my operation. So, like I said, you'll see that completed probably in the next. By the time it's vetted and completed, it'll be in the next 6 months or so. But it is on the fast track. And like I said, that original or the first draft will be available for comment. And you'll see it on the NENA website and the APCO website and stuff very shortly. The standard does encompass the entire QA process from really beginning to end. We really wrestled with the fact of whether or not it would be a mandatory standard. But like with any other standard that I've been involved in developing, it's hard to mandate something when we're not the legislative body. So that mandatory piece usually comes at the state level, maybe sometimes at the local level or whatever. We're just creating a standard that's going to be acceptable. Technically, it's not mandated, but it's going to become an industry standard. So take that for what you will. So there will be things in there such as how many calls per month based on your size of agency and that kind of stuff to be used as a guideline. It'll also define what quality assurance is and all that kind of stuff. So, so how does that translate to the local level? Well, to me, the way I translate that is, I really should be on the ball, and I should be paying attention, and I should have some sort of quality assurance process in place. So here in Edmond, I've got 18 employees that we evaluate. We do a real basic QA at this point. It's a generalized form that we've developed with the product in order to get us by. We actually have another initiative on the table where we're taking each individual call type in our agency and creating an individual QA form in the VPI product. And we believe by going that route, we can actually get into the nooks and crannies and the idiosyncrasies of different call types and come up with a more accurate quality rating for our folks. So we're working on that now. It's a long, tedious process in order to get every call type in there. But it's certainly, it's a garbage in, garbage out type of deal. The more time we spend on the front end, the more value we're going to see on the back end. So the overall objective when it comes to quality assurance here in Edmond is the fact that we want to deliver a better product. We want our customers to be receiving the best possible public safety communication services that they can and that we can provide. And, what ties into that, of course, is the performance of our employees, the processes that we use. Because QA doesn't just expose somebody not doing the job right. It can also expose whether or not our policies are in line with the way that we want to provide service. So it allows the right questions to surface and that kind of stuff. It allows us to be very transparent with our staff. An effective employee needs to know what's expected of them. The QA process is a great facilitator for that piece. So it's also a great tool to be used for our new folks as they come in and come through training. One thing that's very common to new folks that come into the dispatch center is, boy, I don't know if I can ever do this. The people I work with are so good, I don't know if I could ever be that good. We find that the recordings and the QA process itself allows employees to kind of hear how they do it compared to how a seasoned veteran does it. And by hearing that, that's just another tool that we can use for bringing folks closer to being fully trained individuals. Bottom line is that recording is more than it ever has been in the past. It's simply, it used to be a tape that we listened to, but it's really a great opportunity for us to get in and identify whether or not the folks are doing the job that they're trained to do according to the way we've asked them to do it. It's a great tool to identify trends in the way that we do our jobs. Years ago I was a radio broadcaster, and we were required to do what they called air checks back then. And after our show, we would have to listen to that air check. And what would happen in that process is we'd be able to identify any type of ruts that we're getting into. Were we repeating the same thing over again, or saying things we shouldn't say or whatever. That's being involved in that process, 25, 30 years ago made it easy for me to understand how important this quality assurance piece is, because that's what it is. It's an air check of what we do in the communications center day in and day out, and it's a great tool to keep us focused and providing the best possible service that we can.